In patch 3.5, there's been a lot of nerfs to many of your favorite heroes, and even more than that, there are characters that are consistently underperforming with some of the lowest win rates in ranked play. That's why in this video, we're going to break down exactly what nerfed characters are actually worse and in what way, and what characters should you consider maybe putting down for a half season, because the meta is making it extremely hard to get consistent value with them. But exciting sponsor of this video is actually G Fuel. For those of you who know and watch my streams, I am a chronic caffeine abuser and I love some freaking G Fuel. Whether I'm trying to lock in, get some videos done, or I'm streaming, grinding Marvel Rivals, I love to have something to pep me up, and G Fuel has so many great flavors that I can't recommend it enough. And right now, it's the last chance to get buy one, get one free. It's about to end. So if you want to buy a tub, you get another one free. It's literally the best deal you could possibly get, so definitely use my link down below and check it out in the description. But I'm going to take a refreshing sip of G Fuel and get back into the video. Now first, let's talk about the nerfed characters. How much do these changes matter? And the big one that a lot of people are questioning is Black Panther. I have a lot of people coming in my chat saying, is Black Panther unplayable now? Do we even have to nerf this character anymore? To, wow, he's just the same. So what's the actual truth here? The reality is that this is just going to decrease Panther's uptime. And in general, all melee characters have this problem where they have these periods of downtime where they're not really doing anything, and then they're trying to make up for that with high spikes of uptime. Black Panther is just going to have slightly less uptime than before, which over the course of a longer game might mean that you're going to lose to BPs less because he's going to have less engagements over the course of a really long game, you know, going down from maybe 20 engagements. Now he's only going to get 16 or something like that. So this might mean that his win rate goes down and your win rate against Black Panthers go up. But let's be honest here, that's not why anyone was banning Black Panther in the first place. Because if you played characters that countered Black Panther, swapped to appropriate compositions, you were actually fine against Black Panther. It's just about the annoyance factor. Whether you're coddling your teammates trying to keep them alive, or whether you're fighting for your life in the backline without any peel, people just didn't want to fight against Black Panther regardless of how strong he is. And if that's the reason that you were banning Black Panther before, then these changes will do nothing to change that instance for you, and you're probably gonna want to ban him all the same. Now that being said, I'd personally argue that you don't need to ban Black Panther at all. Just watch some of my counter videos about how to stop him. But if you were banning him before, you should probably still do it. Then the next one that people are asking about is Magneto. His bubble now can absorb less damage. People are asking generally, does this actually matter for Magneto? Does this change anything about Magneto? The short answer is no. It's actually like an unfelt change. Magneto is still a top 2 tank in the game, and that's not going to change anytime soon. Magneto's still very strong, and this change is basically marginal at best. It's like an almost completely unfelt change. I would say with the new combos that people are coming up with right now, with Phoenix ulting in with a Magneto ult, so it breaks all the barriers, and then Magneto destroying the support and you can't block it at all. Magneto is actually at a premium right now, even though he's always at a premium, but like that combo is super strong and efficient. I'll have another video in the future breaking down all of the Ignite pro strats that they were using that you can incorporate to actually get a lot of value in your games. Then the next nerfed character is Cloak and Dagger. Now it takes a little bit longer to get their ultimate, but still Cloak and Dagger builds ultimate very quickly. Not quite as fast, but still faster than Luna's and Loki's, and you could still go under a lot of these ultimates because you could ult first, right? You're ulting before they get their ultimates online, especially if you have a composition where you are permitted to heal a ton, double tank composition that's trading a lot of damage, you know, a group composition. You're going to be able to build up that ultimate really quickly, use that ultimate really fast, and basically use it as a tempo shift before the opponents have any ultimates online. That's still possible. Still a little bit weaker. I don't really understand the reasoning for the nerf, to be honest, comparatively to Luna and Loki. You already know my opinions on that, but this change isn't going to make Cloak and Dagger unplayable. Still a very strong support right now. I would still say that they are a top 4 support in the game right now, so don't worry too much about Cloak and Dagger. That being said, my number 1 tip for Cloak and Dagger is that you need to be ready to try to combo your Cloak, your Blind with a lot of ultimates and abilities. If you're comboing with Thor ult, if you're comboing with Magneto ult, if you're comboing with Phoenix ult, using that and making it so that players are vulnerable or they take more damage is going to be super strong when comboed with these other ultimates, because you're going to be able to kill through defensive ults. So You're not going to be able to coordinate this a lot in ranked play, but if you can look out for what they're doing, be ready to swap, be ready to blind the moment an ultimate is used or being used, that's how you're going to be able to turn an ultimate that would have gotten no value into an ultimate that literally wins you a team fight. The last character that we got to talk about in the nerf section, and yeah, there isn't a lot because there aren't a lot of nerfed characters this patch, mainly buffs is what we got, is Wolverine. And Wolverine is going to have a more expensive ult now, so he's going to get ult less frequently. And this is off the back of a lot of the changes that he got in the previous patches. So is Wolverine still a permaban now, or is he someone that you don't care about and you can counter? I think that generally Wolverine is still going to be someone that deserves or demands to be on the ban list because the character is still fundamentally the same. Because of his gameplay loop based around kidnapping your tanks and bringing them into their backline and then just killing your tank, the entire game becomes how do you interact with Wolverine when he's on the battlefield. If you can't consistently interact with them in positive ways, you're gonna lose fights for free, and the Wolverine's gonna do one ability cycle, win the fight for his team. But if you can't interact with them well, then maybe you have a chance. And I do think that there are some compositions, some tank compositions that could be okay against Wolverine. Solo tanking mag thing, Emma thing. You could do a Cap Hulk combination. There's a lot of these tanks that can play into a Wolverine and they could be okay. But the biggest problem about Wolverine is that typically it's a team effort to deal with him. As a single person, it's hard. You need like an all hands on deck type of thing. And if you're solo queuing or even duo queuing, I think that that's a liability to hope for, as most of y'all would agree. Now, the one thing that actually changes when his ultimate is gonna be harder to build now is that when you are deciding to go into a retake, especially when you're jumping through a TP, right? You could swap to something, jump through a TP. Typically, if you swap to Wolverine, not only did you get that massive amount of health, you also got his passive extra bit of health, and then because he built ult so fast, you could take that 50% and then you could just build an ult in that fight and then potentially use it to clutch up. That's going to be a little bit harder, so just keep that in mind. Maybe now you're going to want to swap to the Thing instead, or some other character instead of Wolverine. I still think Wolverine's going to be a pretty good choice depending on the composition you're jumping out of the portal into, but just keep that in mind. You're not going to be able to like basically build your ult for free anymore like you could before on Wolverine. Now, we talked about all the nerfs, and for the most part, nothing really changed, but let's talk about underperforming heroes. There's a lot of heroes that players have a certain perception about how they're performing, but in reality, they're playing or they're performing a lot worse. They're not really winning a lot of games. So I'm going to tell you who these characters are, why they're underperforming, what spots are they still good in, and other alternatives as well. Now, the first underperforming hero is actually Invisible Woman, with one of the lowest win rates out of all the characters in the game. Invisible Woman is not doing great right now, and there's a lot of reasons for this. I think the biggest one is that her ultimate is extremely easy to counter comparatively to other support ultimates. Blade is dominating her ultimate right now. Any type of AoE ultimate is really good at getting her and her entire team because they're all grouped up together. Wolverine can take her out of the ultimate. Jeff can eat up the entire team. Magnetos can hit Invisible Woman's. There's a lot of ways to counteract Invisible Woman, and if you're trying to burst through, you know, like a damage boosted Phoenix ult, you could easily target the entire area and kill the entire team. So the ultimate is a liability, especially when you compare it to Luna, Loki. It's just really lagging behind. Another thing is that Invisible Woman's entire kit does have some good playmaking, right? You're able to pull, you're able to push, you're able to pocket, and all these things can be reasonably powerful, but you are losing some super powerful utility throughout the entire roster. Like Adam and Mantis provide crazy utility. You got Luna that has the amazing ultimate, Loki with some great utility, and then even Rocket with his res beacon. And I'm gonna be honest, I think a better ultimate than Invisible Woman right now. And really, Invisible Woman doesn't generally stack up with all those things. I do think that the best value that you can get with Invisible Woman right now has to do with pocketing a DPS, pocketing a flyer, keeping them constantly shielded, able to take an angle. So like pocketing a Human Torch, giving him the team up with Invisible Woman, that actually does have a positive win rate, when across the board Invisible Woman has a negative win rate. But I do think that in general, Invisible Woman is just lagging behind all the other supports, and if you want raw power, you would rather have Luna in the ultimate department. And if you want utility, you would rather have Loki or many of the other supports right now over Invisible Woman. Is she unplayable? No. Can you get value with her? Yes, but you gotta make sure that you're doing more than just heal botting on this character and relying on your ultimate power, because if you're not constantly pulling people out of position, making kill plays, making push and pull plays, making pocket plays, then you would probably be better off playing a different hero right now. The next character that we got to talk about that is actually underperforming is Moon Knight. And I do think that there is actually spots that Moon Knight can be viable, can be good, especially when you're comboing with Groot, and Groot's really good right now. There are times where Moon Knight can actually be just a ton of pressure against triple support, against Loki, against triple tank. There's spots for Moon Knight. But the general problem with Moon Knight is that he's just a little bit too easy to kill. He's a little bit too easy to get picked off. And in a world where there's a ton of characters that can hunt down a Moon Knight, there's a ton of tanks with mobility that can hunt down a Moon Knight like Hulk, Cap, Thor. There's a ton of DPS that can hunt down a Moon Knight like Star-Lord and Psylocke. And even long-distance damage dealers like Jean and Hela are all reasonably good against Moon Knight. Like, Moon Knight is a character that wants to be completely uncontested, and the reality of the game is that's just not very likely. Like I said, you could play Moon Knight and you could get value with them if you really know what you're doing. There are some players that make it work, but in general, I do think that Moon Knight is struggling, and the win rates reflect that across all ranks. Even in the lower ranks, Moon Knight has a really low win rate. So it's a low win rate in the lower ranks, and then as you climb in rank, it goes even lower. So it's a character that is just really not performing very well, and I do think that there are most likely better alternatives to play than Moon Knight right now. Now, another underperforming hero right now is Ultron, but there's a big caveat around this, because I think that Ultron actually has some really strong uses. It's just people are just generally using him not very well. So Ultron has a really low win rate, one of the lowest out of all the supports. And really, the problem with Ultron is that he just can't be played as a second support. I mean, you could do it, and you technically could win, but the reality of it is, Ultron is best used, his best power is protecting against dive or enabling flyers. If you're not doing one of those two things, Ultron is basically worse than almost anything else you could play. So if your drone isn't in your backline and triple support, basically making a Black Panther useless. I think triple support Ultron's one of the best anti-Black Panther comps you could play. Or if you're not pocketing like two flyers like an Iron Man and a Storm or a Johnny and an Iron Man, then Ultron is just gonna be a worse version of so many other supports. If you want damage, play Adam. If you want damage and utility, play Mantis. If you want pretty much anything else like a good ultimate and good power, there's so many other supports you could play. I think right now the support meta is very interesting because of Adam and Mantis like basically taking a giant step back into the meta, and those are damage dealing supports that provide a ton of utility, and Ultron just doesn't comparatively. So I do think that if you're not playing him in those two situations I talked about, you're going to struggle with this character. Great pocket pick, great thing to swap to if you're a DPS player and you're struggling. Let's say you're trying to get value, you can't get any value anywhere as a DPS no matter what you do. You already have two tanks and two supports. You could swap to Ultron, and then all of a sudden you insulate your team, you enable your tanks to carry more, you enable your other DPS to carry more. That could be a great pick, but just locking Ultron as your second support in the neutral, I don't really think I could suggest it right now. Now, number 4 is an underperforming character. Even though they're still very strong, Hela is actually underperforming. And Hela has dropped in pick rate. Hela has dropped in win rate. Why is this happening? And is Hela still playable? Well, the reality is Hela's still good. Hela's still really, really strong. Hela is actually just as strong as she was not too long ago when she was dominant. But the difference is that now Jean exists. And for the most part, for most players in most situations, Jean is going to be a more versatile version of Hela with actually higher upside right now. A lot of the numbers on Jean are probably tweaked a little bit too high, and they're going to stay like that for a while because she's a new character. And you should be utilizing that if you're going to play a character that is similar to Hela. From being able to take more proactive positions to the ability to regenerate HP when you're constantly triggering these explosions with your fire, which is so good for dueling basically anybody, to the ability to focus tanks and do a lot of tank damage that Hela just simply cannot, to an ultimate that is just playing way, way better in this meta. It's so freaking strong. The ultimate is so damn good right now, comparatively to Hela ultimate that I think is just way too easy to counter, and you just have a character that you would just almost always play over Hela. It's funny because the one situation that I think Hela really shines in is actually diffing enemy Jeans. Like, Hela actually has better 1v1 capability from range, so she's better against Jeans a lot of the time. But in anything else, against anything else, I do think that Jean is going to be mostly better. Jean is also a character that you get more rewarded for body shots than Hela. Like Hela, if you're not dinking constantly and getting mid-fight picks, you're doing nothing. Jean, you could just shoot tanks all the time. Not saying you should, but you can and get a ton of value because you're providing a ton of team damage. So yeah, in general, Jean has eaten up all of the pick rate and success that Hela once had. And that's kind of crazy because we lived in a Hela meta for so long. We're like, will the devs ever nerf Hela? Hela's so broken at the top levels of play. We were always talking about it. And the thing that actually killed Hela, so to speak, didn't really kill, but the thing that removed her from the meta at the top tiers is the introduction of a hero that just does things a little bit better. And number 5 is one that you probably will be surprised by that's underperforming. It's actually Punisher, one of the lowest win rates in the entire game across ranks. And as you climb, his win rate goes down. Why is Punisher struggling? This character that was meta before, now all of a sudden is just not really doing it. Well, remember, he did get some nerfs going a little bit back that have started to affect him now. But there are a couple things to think about when you think about Punisher. Number 1, he's not really that good against long distance poke. Punisher cannot trade damage favorably with someone like a Jean. And Jean is basically everywhere in the meta and it's going to be pretty rough. In addition to that, of course, Magneto is everywhere in the meta and Magneto is a very good counter to Punisher. And really, you got to think about Punisher as a character that needs to be team enabled more than anything. Punisher, like as a solo person, right, is a person that if you pop your ult, through your ult, you could win an entire team fight. It can kill defensive ults, it can run through the enemy tank line, but it's so easy to counter. You could get shot, you could get focused, you could get ulted by Magneto. The only way that that actually turns into a win condition is by your entire team helping you, all hands on deck, really enabling you, right? Shields, bubbles, pocket, defensive ults. If you don't have that, Punisher is a super liability. Unlike a Jean ult that you can just basically use at any time, it not only can just be popped anywhere, but it keeps you alive in a moment where you're about to die. So it doesn't really need team synergy. So you have one character that the way that they mainly get value and carry is by your team enabling it and everyone working together. And you have another character that is just like, oh, this character can do things by themselves. And that's not true just with Jean. It's true with a lot of characters. Punisher is a win condition for a team, not really a great win condition for an individual. I'm sure the Punishers in chat understand what I'm talking about, where every time you pop your Punisher ult in a spot that it should be good in, you just instantly die, or no one bubbles you when you're getting Magneto ulted. And it really doesn't help that against dive DPS, Punisher isn't really that great at dueling them. He's a little bit too bulky. He doesn't have any crowd control. So Punisher is a little bit of a victim in some games. And while there are some crazy highs with him, when you get those teams that enable him, there are some lows. I do think that you can actually get a ton of value as Punisher up against certain characters like Groot when the opponent is not playing anything like Magneto, or when you're duoing with a Magneto player yourself that can actually enable you and protect you. I do think like Punisher and Magneto duos could be really, really good. But in general, this character is massively underperforming, and maybe you should consider branching off a little bit. Now, the last important stat, the most interesting stat to me, is that there's no tanks that are underperforming by a lot, right? Like, almost across the board, there are supports and DPS that are underperforming, but tanks, no. I just think that people aren't playing tanks enough, and that's probably just a common problem, and it's a problem at all ranks, but every single tank is winning games. Every single tank has their purposes, and they're winning. They're being picked a lot, and they're winning. So yeah, in general, more tanks need to be played because there is just definitely too many supports and DPS that are not getting value seeing play when there are a ton of tanks that are always getting value not seeing play. That's why when people say like, oh, well, hey, Thor is maybe better, but he's still the worst tank. Now, I don't even know if I agree with that, but even if he was the worst tank, he would still be better than like half the DPS and several supports as well. So anyways, just keep that in mind. Now, was there any character that I missed, hit, or you're curious about? Let me know in the comments down below. Definitely smash that like and subscribe. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.